Here to explain the art of leveraging the emotions of a deal is Tim Kintz, president of the Kintz Group. Please give him a warm welcome.
Hi, I'm Tim Kintz, and I'm here in New Orleans, Louisiana at the NADA convention, and it is NADA 100. It's the 100th anniversary of NADA. Now, the first time I saw that it was the 100th anniversary, I wasn't really sure if it was 100th anniversary of NADA or 100th anniversary of the NADA convention, because my first thought was, man, if it's 100th anniversary of the NADA convention, what the heck were they talking about in 1917, man? I guess the parts guys were talking about how to have a better turn ratio on buggy whips, and all the Ford family was trying to convince everybody that they needed to go from horse and buggy to Model A's or whatever they were selling. But man, no matter what it is, this convention is unbelievable. NADA puts on an amazing convention, and man, everybody's learning a lot here. There's tons of great seminars. You guys that are watching this, if you didn't come to the convention and you're watching these videos after the fact, man, take advantage of the videos. Watch them. You're going to learn a ton of information. There's tons of great speakers, great topics, and take that knowledge and transfer it to your team so you can maximize every opportunity in your dealership to increase your profits. And you know, it's crazy here too. When you walk the exhibit hall, any of you guys that have ever been here, man, you know when you walk that exhibit hall, it is overwhelming. It's anything you need for your dealership, it's there. It's huge. It's a mile freaking long. Let me tell you, I've been walking from one end to the other. I'm getting about 10 miles a day of walking in, so I don't even need to go work out in the mornings. Man, it is crazy. But when you go through there, you've got 10 or 15 companies for car washing, and if you got a bad reputation and your CSI sucks, they got companies that'll fix your CSI for you. You've got CRM companies and DMS companies, and how to manage and price your used cars better, and how to do a better job with your new cars, and man, front-end alignments. It's unbelievable the amount of technology that's on that exhibit floor. It'll blow your mind, and that's the majority of what you see down there. It's crazy. The massive amounts of technology companies that's down there, it's crazy because there's very few companies down there that are actually people companies, training and developing people. Look, it's almost looking at the technology and thinking the technology is going to sell cars for us. And we forget about the people. But who sells cars? Is it the technology that sells cars, or is it the people that sell cars? Yeah, in a combination in real life with all the technology right now, technology helps people sell cars. But you can have all the technology in the world, but if the people aren't executing it right, if they're not capitalizing on the system, on the program, man, then it just becomes an expense. How many of you guys out there went and bought a computer program because they promised you were going to sell more cars because of that computer program or that system, and it didn't deliver results? Happens to every one of us, because it comes down to the execution. It comes down to the people part of our business. Here's what it's learning. How do we sync technology with the people? And when you can sync technology with people, that's when you maximize your investment. That's when you get your return on your investment with all that technology that you have. And you know, it's crazy. The hardest part of our business is the people part of our business. I mean, face it, it's always hard. In all the workshops I've done, everybody talks about how, man, it's hard to find good people. It's tough to manage the millennials. It's hard to manage the 30-year vet. It is. There's no doubt. Look, my buddy used to always say that the car business would be the best in the world if it wasn't for the people, all right? Well, you can't get rid of the people, but man, we can learn how to manage our people. And plus, how many of you guys right now are finding it hard to find good people, to hire good people? I'm betting most of you are right now. And it is tough to hire good salespeople, good car people. There's a lot of good people out there, but you hire good people and you train and develop those people. That's really what it comes down to. So when you get all the technology's not going away. I'm not saying technology's bad. I'm saying it's great. But now we got to develop our people. Now, here's the one thing, though. We got to understand people. Okay, if you want to be able to develop people, you got to understand them. Because with people, we have human nature. There is human nature involved in managing people. And one thing when it comes to human nature is we're all human beings. And all human beings we're emotional beings, okay? Human beings are emotional beings. So what does that mean? Well, there's ups and downs. There's emotional highs and there's emotional lows. Whether it's your salespeople, whether it's your management team, whether it's the customers, everybody is emotional. That is the common thread that runs through everybody. Again, whether it's your management team, whether it's your sales team, whether it's your customers, we are emotional beings, and learning to control those emotions is critical. Even think about your customers, right? Your customers come on a lot, and every one of you guys out there, we're all spending a ton of money in advertising. Some of us are spending 20 grand a month, some of us are spending 40 grand a month, some of us are spending 100 grand, some of us are spending 500,000 a month. But think about, why are you spending that money in advertising? I mean, why are we spending all that money? Isn't it to generate traffic, right? You spend the money to generate traffic, whether it's generating traffic over the internet, whether it's generating traffic through incoming calls, whether it's generating traffic for walk-in customers, fresh ups coming on your lot. We're trying to generate traffic. So who's the traffic, right? The traffic is customers. Well, what are those customers? Aren't they all people? And those people are human beings. And what do all of those human beings or our customers have? They all have emotions. Okay, and when we talk about customers' emotions, some of their emotions are high, some of them are low, some are good, some are bad, some are fearful, some are happy, some are excited, but it's learning how to control those emotions. Here's what it comes down to. How do we sync our technology with our people with their emotions? And once we can do that, that's when you get your return on your advertising dollars. And it's crazy that we drive all this traffic to our dealership, all these customers, these people, these human beings, these emotional human beings to our dealership, and they're highly motivated when they get there. So we have highly motivated customers being dealt with and handled by unmotivated, unprepared, and untrained, most of the time, salespeople. So highly motivated customers dealing with unmotivated, unprepared, untrained salespeople, that's a recipe for disaster. Man, it's all about making sure our guys are motivated also. Our sales team is as motivated as the customer is, because man, I go to dealerships all around the country. Every single week I'm in dealerships. And it's amazing when you look at some of these sales teams. Some of them aren't sales teams, they're sales prevention teams, all right? Some of us have sales prevention people, sales prevention teams, not salespeople. I mean, it's about turning our sales team into highly motivated sales professionals, but to do that, it's critical for us as management. It's us as leaders to understand how to capitalize on the emotions. Again, whether it's our people, whether it's our customers, we need to figure out how to capitalize on that. Because I'm in dealerships every single week, all around the country, virtually every single week. And the biggest thing I try to do when I go in dealerships, in fact, I don't try to do it, we do it, is I try to bring the fun. I try to bring the excitement. I try to bring the competition into the dealerships. Because wouldn't you guys agree that if your salespeople are having fun, if your management team's having fun, and if they were more competitive, it makes it easier to sell? Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, or whatever that saying is. Man, it's absolutely right. Have fun. Turn those negative emotions into positive emotions. Create some competition in your dealership, and that's really when you start seeing the difference, man. Have fun. Rule number one in selling, have fun. And let's bring the competition back to the dealership. Because once you do that, then selling's easy. And here's what we got to remember. We've been blessed. We've been blessed over the last 5, 6, 7 years in the car business. The business has been pretty easy, okay? Because I always ask, are we selling cars or are customers coming out and buying cars? Well, in a lot of cases, customers are coming out buying cars. I go in some dealerships, they're not actually closers. They're not selling. People are buying cars. And, man, we've had record years. Right now, it's January 2017. Last year, we sold just under 18 million vehicles. 2016, I think it was about 17.5 million. Man, for the last 4, 5, 6 years, we've been going up and up and up and up, and things have been great. Things have been going really good, but what happens when there's a pullback, right? What happens when people aren't coming out on your lot and just buying cars, and we actually have to sell? We actually have to close these customers. Man, that's why it's so important that we teach our guys how to leverage the emotions of a car deal, how to sync the customer's emotions with our salespeople's emotions, and that's when that's when you hit the big time. That's when you start dominating your market and gaining market share during good times and during bad times. So we got a lot of stuff to cover, and there's one thing I'm going to cover at the end. One important thing that I want every one of you guys to do that will bring the fun and the competition back in your dealership. I'm gonna show you how you can put $250,000 of gross profit in your dealership, okay? And it's guaranteed. We do it in every dealership that we go into and have in-house training, and it's guaranteed to put $250,000 of gross in your dealership. So, man, stick in there, because I'm gonna cover that last. But what we need to do first, okay, here's what we gotta do. We gotta look at a few things. Number one, we need to look at the emotions of a deal. So we're going to look at our customers. We're going to look at the emotional highs and emotional lows of our customers, because look, they all go through emotional highs and emotional lows. But we also got to look at a salesperson. We got to look at the salesperson's uncontrolled emotions and their controlled emotions, okay? They have highs, they have lows. Here's the bottom line. Salespeople are always emotional, though. Salespeople are emotional creatures. So we're going to break all that down, because it's going to make us as managers, okay? It's going to make us better managers, better leaders. It's going to help us understand our people better, because always remember this. I always say we need to be understood, or we need to understand before being understood, okay? You must first understand before being understood. You need to understand your people before they're going to understand you. Stop trying to fix customers. Stop trying to fix your people. Fix yourself first. Understand what your salespeople go through. Understand the salespeople's emotion. Understand the customer's emotion. Then we can fix it, because you're never going to fix the customer. We're going to learn how to capitalize on those customers' emotions. So when we talk about the emotions of the deal, okay, we're going to look at the emotions, when they happen, what causes them, and whether it's why they're caused, whether they're good emotions, bad emotions, how do we leverage it, and when do the good emotions and bad emotions happen throughout the course of a car deal. And as we're breaking this down, we're going to go in detail on our salespeople. We're going to go in detail on the customers, and then I'm going to give you guys 8 things you can do this year to be able to leverage the emotion, be able to make this year the best year ever. And I always say, man, if you want to get the most out of your salespeople, you got to understand that their emotions can make or break a car deal. We all know that, man. It all comes down to emotions. And there's some things, positives and negatives they do, but I always say one of the biggest negatives that cost guys deals, and cost all of us deals, is we sell out of fear. When you're selling out of fear, are those positive or negative emotions? Yeah, aren't they negative emotions? I mean, we sell out of desperation instead of inspiration. I mean, we're so afraid we're going to lose the deal that we never make a deal. Man, I'm a football fan. I'm a sports fan in general. And if you're a football fan, I mean, when defenses play prevent defense, what does prevent defense do for you? Yeah, it prevents you from winning most of the time. The other team just drives down the field, man, pass, they score a touchdown. And then you bum out all the people that are betting on it because they don't cover the spread. But it's don't play prevent defense, man. It's stop selling out of fear, sell out of inspiration, not desperation. And I promise that negative emotions are going to start going away. But you know, I understood during the recession selling out of fear. Now we're having record years. I mean, if you didn't have a record year last year, but the industry had a record year, I don't know if I asked my 8-year-old daughter, Madden, if I said, the industry had a record year, shouldn't every dealership have had a record year? Well, of course, that's just common sense. So stop selling out of fear. Next one is salespeople have a job instead of a career. Okay, what do I mean by that? They look at this as kind of a stopgap until they find something else to do. It's not something they're thinking long-term. They don't have a long-term vision. And they don't have a long-term vision because, quite frankly, we probably didn't help them have a long-term vision. Or maybe we hired the wrong person. But here's what I know. Job, we've all heard it, stands for just over broke. If they treat it like a job instead of a career, they'll be living paycheck to paycheck, and you're going to have huge turnover in your store. They're also transactional salespeople instead of relational salespeople. Okay, and I'll talk about relational salespeople here in a minute. But transactional salespeople, all they care about is that one deal. Man, they're just blow and go. they just want the numbers of customers. Man, they make that commission box or they're on to the next. No follow-up, no prospecting, no relationship with the customer. They don't get to know the customer at all. And those people are usually the most negative people you have in your dealership. They're the guys standing out on point that are doing nothing, talking about how slow F&I is, how bad you are as a manager, and how you don't ever put enough money in the trade, and that the dealership down the street's a much better place. That creates negative emotion, man, when you have transactional salespeople. Also, when your guys have poor selling skills, they're always going to have negative emotions. They're going to have highs and lows, man, if they're not any good. Every now and then, if they run into that lay down, the easy deal, yeah, they're excited, but most of the time, man, those are your negative guys in the store. And ultimately, negative emotions, here's what happens. It's because of poor leadership in the dealership. Really, all these things that are negative that have to do with emotions, it's all top down. Look, you look at a football team or a baseball team, whatever that management team is, whatever those coaches' attitudes are, whatever their beliefs are, that usually is mirrored by the players. So everything you see in your players, it all starts with us. We got to look at that. So what are some things we do to create the positive emotions, the controlled emotions from salespeople, the things that positively affect your car deal? Well, I always say look at a new hire. Right? You want to see positive emotions? You want to see the good stuff? Look at your new hires, man. Think about your new guys. What's their attitudes like? What's a new guy's attitude? Isn't it good? I mean, they're all jacked up. They're excited. Customers on the lot, they're all fired up, man, having that customer. Here's what they are. They're transactional salespeople. I mean, they're relational salespeople. I used to think they were transactional salespeople. They're actually relational salespeople. Because remember the first car you ever sold? Most of you guys probably do. And you were all jacked up. You were all excited. You still remember that customer today. If you saw them, you'd remember that customer because you cared about them. You built a relationship with them. You stayed in touch with that customer. They meant something to you. And after about 30, 60, 90 days, what happens to that relational salesperson, that new hire? Don't they become a transactional salesperson? They're just worried about that one car deal, man. It's insane, man. These new guys, or we call them, the 90-day wonder. 90 days into it, they wonder why they can't sell cars because they get too smart. They start talking to Captain Wrinkle, your 6-car guy that's a transactional salesperson. You know that guy that's been there for 30 years to sell 6 cars a month. I mean, those guys are killing your dealership. We got to look at a new hire. Start having that positive, transfer that positive attitude, positive emotions over to the new hires, man. To everybody, that's when you see big differences. Also, your relational salespeople, meaning your guys that sell 20, 30, 40 cars a month, man, those guys understand positive emotions. They understand the negatives and positives that can affect their car deal, and they take that emotions that the customer comes in with, whether it's fear or anything, and they can turn it positive. Now, look, those top achievers, those top producers you have, they're not always positive. Don't get me wrong, man. Some of them are divas. Some of them are negative. Some of them are a pain in the butt sometimes. But when they're in front of that customer, where's their emotions? Are they good or bad emotions? Aren't they good? But man, they're very high. They can turn it on and turn it off. So you got to look at the relational salespeople you have at your dealership. Look at a guy's emotion level when he has record months. What's that? Is when they're having a record month, they got 14 cars out on the 10th of the month. What's the guy's attitude and emotions like? Good or bad? Aren't they good? Man, all those affect the deal positively. Man, when things are going good, we all know when's the best time to sell a car? Right after you sold one. So it's because they're positive, because they have those good emotions. Man, we have to duplicate that all the time with everybody. Also, the guy that loves the product. Any of you guys have that guy that loves the product? Man, his emotions are always high. He's just a geeked up man on that 1 or 2 cars. And he sells the heck out of them, but then he's got these 1 or 2 cars over he hates that you sell, and he never sells them. I wonder why. Because when he's with when he's with the Tahoe, when he's with that truck, they love him. Man, he loves that product. He gets emotional, creates positive emotion with the customer. They sell more cars. This one, he doesn't really like that car that much. Nah, it's just rubber, glass, and metal to him. This one is badass. That one, whatever. I don't really want one of those. So it's understanding the guys that love the cars. We have to help them duplicate that positive emotion on every single car with every customer, because to every customer, that car is the most important vehicle in the world, whether the salesperson likes it or not. And then really it comes down to great leadership if we're going to have if we're going to have positive emotions, if we're going to be able to leverage the emotions of a deal, it goes right back to us again. Everything comes back to leadership. So let's do this. Let's look at the customer for a second. All right, we talked about the salesperson, things that have a positive effect, negative effect on their emotions and the deal. Let's talk about the customer. Remember, we got to understand before being understood. So your customer, I always say that customers, before they buy, they have to think, feel, and act positive about their decision, right? Customer has to think, feel, and act positive about their decision before they're going to buy a car from you. So what does that mean? What are customers looking for? Well, they're looking for the feeling of being taken care of. Probably more now than ever. I started 27 years ago in the business. I don't know, they just came in and grinded it out. They didn't have all the information. They weren't as educated buying cars. They had to go dealership to dealership to dealership to figure out what was even out there. Now, they walk on the lot, man, they expect more. They want to be taken care of. And it's ultimately, they want to have confidence in the salesperson. They want to have confidence in the dealership that you will be there for them. And ultimately, they want to trust you. Okay, it all comes down to trust. They want to feel like they're being taken care of. They want confidence in the people that are going to be taking care of them, and then they want to be able to trust you. So how do we bring them through that process? Well, it starts with understanding what happens before the customer ever leaves the dealership, ever leaves their house and gets to your dealership. Think about that customer when they're sitting at home. I don't care if it's 2 weeks out, 2 months out, 2 days out. Think about the emotional roller coaster customers go through before they ever show up at the dealership to buy a car. There's a ton of emotions. It's crazy. Here's what I mean. Think about the things that are emotional highs, things that get a customer excited about wanting to go out and buy a car. What are some of those things? Think about it for a second. Isn't it if their neighbor pulls up in a car, brand new, temp tag, nicer truck than what they got? What happens to that customer? Aren't they thinking, man, we need to get a new car. It's about time for us to get a new car. Man, our car's 11.4 years old. We need a new car. That's the average age of cars on the road. Man, but they're thinking, he got one, why can't I? Or their family member got one. I go out and buy a car, all of a sudden my wife wants to get a car. Or a coworker gets a car. It creates that positive emotion in me. I want to get a car. I want to have one. Sometimes they'll see one on the road at a stoplight, and they're like, man, that thing looks good. Sometimes they'll see a TV ad. Isn't that what advertising's designed to do? To get somebody emotionally excited about a car? That's why they drive them down coasts, and it looks beautiful. And I live in Dallas, Texas, and I'll never be driving my car down the Pacific Coast Highway, but it makes me excited about wanting to drive down the Pacific Coast Highway. You watch a commercial like, wow, does Matthew McConaughey come with that car too? It's all about emotions. That's what advertising is designed to do. And it gets customers emotional. They get excited about that. And that's a good thing. It's also, they also get emotional when they go online and start specking out a car. Hopefully you guys have all been on the websites. They go in there and it's fun to spec out a car, man. You start specking out the color you want, all the options, the leather color, the exterior color. You want the panoramic sunroof, and you want the rear entertainment system, the third row, and all of a sudden, you're all fired up about this. It creates positive emotion. And then here's what happens. You spec out that car, and then every website you go to after that, what happens to that car? Doesn't it follow you? So you just got done building a Grand Cherokee, and then you go to Facebook. Guess what's on Facebook? A cookie. You got a Grand Cherokee there. And then you go to ESPN. Hey, there's a Grand Cherokee banner ad on there. Go figure. It follows you everywhere you go. It must be destiny. It's just brainwashing. It's conditioning customer. And all of a sudden, their emotions get positive. They start thinking, we really do have to go see that. We have to go look at one of those Grand Cherokees. But it's the positive emotion. They spec it out on the internet. The internet follows them everywhere they go, whether it's their phone, whether it's their computer. And it's all positive emotions. Also, some other things that are the positive emotions, they get new jobs, or they have a family. They have new kids coming. They're excited about stuff. Could be new safety features. Could be that we now have active safety features and not just passive safety features. All of a sudden on their current car, all they got is airbags and ABS, crumple zones and tempered glass and side impact beams. Okay, well, that's great. But now they start seeing lane departure warnings and forward collision warnings and backup cameras. And now all of a sudden we have active safety and security features that were never there before, and that creates positive emotions and positive feelings to somebody that they want to get a new car. But this is all happening before they ever show up at our dealership. But here's what else happens. They also have emotional lows, things that negatively affect their emotions. Things like their car breaks down and they have to go to a service department. Okay, you ever had to go to your service department and get something fixed? Some of you guys might have a really good service department, but for most customers, when they get that $842 bill that they weren't expecting, man, that creates a negative emotion, right? It's an emotional low to customers. They get in an accident and they have to get a new car. It's emotional low to most customers. They start thinking about the past experience, right? Even though it's 3 or 4 years old, they're like, man, we're going to get grinded again. I hate going out and buying cars. They ask customers, would you rather buy a car, get sued, or have a root canal? A lot of customers have to think about it. They're like, well, at least I get drugs when I get a root canal, because man, we make it so tough on people. But that's a negative emotion when they start thinking about what it was like in the past when they went and bought the car. So, man, that's always negative. When they start doing payment calculators. Look, we just talked about when they go spec the car out online, that's a positive emotion. It is until they get to the last page, okay? It's because when you get to the last page of specking out that car, what's that last page? Isn't it the payment calculator? Isn't it where you actually start seeing the price and seeing the payments on that thing? And all of a sudden, I just saw an ad that said $299 a month for that vehicle. Why does it tell me my payments are going to be $1,486? And then customers, now all of a sudden they get bummed out. And then they really get bummed out when they start getting numbers on their trade. When they go in, book out their trade, they go to Instant Cash Offer, KBB Instant Cash Offer, or they start booking their car out at Black Book or NADA Book. All of a sudden, they're thinking, what do you mean it's only worth $12,000? I paid $40,000 for it 4 years ago. It should be worth more than $12,000, because they remember what they paid for 4 years ago. And then they look at the payoff and they're like, oh my goodness. It's only worth $12,000. We owe $18,000 on this thing. Man, we are flipped in it. And again, that's one of those negative emotions. It's one of those things that get the customer down. It's all these things. And then they call a dealership. You want to talk about negative, call the dealership. And they get grinded, or they deal with again, Captain Wrinkle on the phone that's not any good on the incoming calls, and it's a negative to that customer. Or they go to 800credit.com or whatever it is and find out they thought they had great credit, and they find out they got a 520 credit score, and they're thinking, man, can we even get approved on a car? We need a new car. We were in an accident. Can we get approved? Do we have any money down? So look, here's my point. There's always ups and downs. There's highs and lows with every customer before they show up at our dealership. And you got to understand that. And once we understand that as managers, as salespeople, as dealers, then it's easy to understand that customer once they show up at our dealership, because they're up and down and up and down and up and down. But here's the good news. By the time that customer actually shows up, physically walks on your lot, where's that customer at emotionally? Are they closer to the emotional lows, or are they closer to the emotional highs once we get to breathe on that customer? Yeah, aren't they closer to the emotional highs? I mean, if you think about driving all the way to the dealership to go look at that car, they're not sitting down, they're not driving and talking about all the negatives. What are they talking about? Man, what color do we want to get? They're maybe arguing over the color interior. They're wondering how great it's going to be to drive. I mean, I remember one time me and my wife were going to look at a vehicle, and all we were talking about was how it compared to the vehicle she was driving, and she was excited to drive it, and there were certain things she wanted in it, and then we get to the dealership. Right off the bat, salesperson said, you want to drive it? Guess what she said? No, I don't want to drive it. I'm thinking, you just spent 30 minutes driving on the drive down to the dealership saying you wanted to drive it, and now you don't want to drive it? Yes, she wants to drive it, because it's fear, man. That's the emotion. When they show up, they're excited, but fear can cost the deal. Fear of emotions or fear of buying a car can cost you a deal, but it's up, down, up, down. And once you understand the emotional chart, once you understand the logic chart and how positive emotions, negative emotions, and logic plays a part in the car deal, that's when you capitalize on every single opportunity that walks on your lot. So let's look at the emotional chart, okay? It's I call it your emotion and logic chart of buying and selling. And you got emotional highs and you have emotional lows, or I call it logic when they're at the dealership. And I break my sales process down basically to 4 parts, okay? It's very simple. Everything I do, man, I'm in dealerships all the time. I try to make it as simple as possible. It's quadrant 1. Here's quadrant 1, really quick. I'll spend a little more time on it. But quadrant 1 is where you kind of find common grounds, where you have an ongoing conversation about them personally. It's where you find out what their hot buttons are. Okay, features, yes. I really want to know what their hot buttons are. Wants and needs, we all heard that in the past. I want to know what gets them lathered up there. I want to know what creates mental ownership. I want to know their compelling reason why they want to buy a car. And it's also where I do my pre-demo trade walk. Okay, and I'll explain all those in a few. But I'm finding common ground, I'm finding their hot buttons, and I'm doing a pre-demo trade walk in quadrant 1. Quadrant 2 is my high-impact presentation demonstration. This is where I really create mental ownership with that customer. Quadrant 3 is where I transition them from the demo to the transaction when I bring them inside. And quadrant 4 is the actual negotiation. Or for some of you guys that are, if you're a one-price store, it's where you wrap up the deal. It's where you give the customer the options. I don't care if you're a traditional store or one-price store. The emotions still play the same in a car deal. That's the beauty of this chart. But here's what we got to understand. The customer comes in. They're closer to their highs, the emotional highs when they get there. What's my job to do as a salesperson with those emotions? Isn't it to keep their emotions as high as I can, as long as I can? Because if you look at the chart, that customer comes in, they're emotionally high. My job is to get the emotions higher and higher and higher as long as possible, because here's what will happen. Once I'm done with that demo, once I'm done with quadrant 3, and it's time for the negotiation, quadrant 4, what's going to happen to that customer's emotion? What happens to it? Don't they become logical? And now they're not completely logical. If I did a good job in quadrant 1, 2, and 3, that customer is going to be logical, but they're still going to have emotions. They're going to still be excited about getting their new vehicle. But if I do a good job in my negotiation, make them feel like they won, a win-win negotiation, and if I could justify my numbers, then at delivery, the customer, that's the highest emotional point of sale. When that customer, when they're burning gas and busting bugs, when that customer is down the road motors, that's the highest emotional point, man. And that's ideally what we want the customer to go through. They come in, they're emotionally high. I raise their excitement and their enthusiasm and their emotions. I sit down and negotiate. We're going to be more logical at that point, justifying numbers. And then at delivery, man, they are fired up, excited about their purchase. Now think about salespeople. Think about your salespeople right now. Where's their emotions in this deal? Where's their emotions throughout this entire deal? Isn't it high? I mean, salespeople are emotional creatures. We all know that. If you're a salesperson watching it, you're emotional. I'm emotional. We're all emotional, man. That's what makes us salespeople. It's good and it's bad. Here's where we are, all right? Our emotions are always high. That yellow line, that's us. And it's good if you can control your emotions, because uncontrolled emotions, that's what kills our deal. That kills the emotions of a customer. And if you look at the gaps, quadrant 4 is one of the biggest gaps you have to be careful with. And here's what I mean. Customer's logical. They're mainly logical at this point. If we stay really emotional and we can't control those emotions, then your emotions crush your ability to be logical with that customer. That's why so few salespeople actually can do a gas savings close. So few salespeople can do a maintenance close in the negotiation. So few of them do a total cost ownership close, or reduce to the ridiculous, or any of the long-term savings closes, or any of those closes. Most salespeople don't use them, at least the ones that can't control their emotions, because your emotions crush your ability to be logical. And then you break one of the golden rules of negotiating. One of the golden rules of negotiating is whoever cares least about a deal wins. Okay, so if you care more about that customer buying that car than they care about them buying a car, and you're more emotional at that point, that's when you lose the deal. That's when the customer wins in that deal, and maybe even doesn't buy it. But if the customer, my goal is to get the customer to want to buy our car more than I want to sell it to them, and control my emotions. And if you can control your emotions as a salesperson, that's when you're going to be a professional negotiator. You're going to be professional in the transaction with every single customer. And look, for you guys that are managers, if you see a salesperson who's emotionally attached to that customer, look, come on, they work you to death. They come in, as a manager and dealers, when your salespeople are emotional because they're working you to death. Come on, boss. Man, I'll make it up on the next deal. Man, we just got to sell the car. This guy's never going to go for $1,400 a month with $15,000 down. I mean, the salespeople, they work you harder than they work the customer because they're emotionally attached to that customer. And they're financially attached to that customer. And if they can't control it, you need to take over that deal. Don't set your guys up for failure. Don't send them out there when they're too emotional because it's not only is your salesperson going to fail, but we're going to fail the customer because we're not putting them in a position where they feel like it's a win-win. But it's understanding this. And I'll also tell you this. This chart is ideal, how we want it to be. There's another thing that can really kink the deal. It can really crush the emotions of the entire deal, especially with a customer. Because think about in quadrant 1, customer first comes on a lot. What are some things salespeople do to negatively affect the emotions early on in the deal when that customer first shows up? Okay, ask them questions like how much you want to spend a month, how much down do you have, what do you owe on your trade, what's your credit like? What does an A-card guy care about what their credit's like? So what, sell them a car. But when you start bringing all those things up. I do training at a dealership, Nissan store. And first thing I found out when I went in the store, they were selling about $80 a month, and we went in there, and first thing they were doing with customers is they were pulling credit in the first 5 minutes of customers showing up, sitting down, doing a credit app, pulling the credit, and seeing if the customer could buy. Okay, that's great with the guy that's got a 480 credit score. He'll let you do whatever he wants. But man, we're missing all the 650, 700, 750, 800 credit scores because they're not going to let you do it. Plus, think about it, man. If all of a sudden you're coming on my lot, excited, emotional about getting a new car, and now I'm going to turn it into credit, and I'm going to make it all about payments and stuff, man, it crushes their emotion. So this customer comes on the lot, like the red line, boom. All of a sudden become logical. I'm artificially forcing you to be logical. You want to be excited. You want to get your new car. You want to know about color. You want to select the right color, the interior. You want to make sure that it drives great. It gets great fuel economy. Here, let me ruin all that emotions, all that excitement. Let me make you be logical, technically negotiate with you in the first 5 or 10 minutes of the deal. And now what do I got to try to do? Once I get through all the logic, now I got to try to get you excited. Good luck with that. Good luck with that because I'm going to move your emotions up a little bit. I'm going to get you a little excited, but that customer's never going to really hit their emotional highs. And then after the demo, now I got to sit down with that customer and negotiate again. So we're negotiating twice, and then when that customer takes delivery, they're never happy. We all know that, man. That's when you get on the survey. I felt really pressured in a negotiation. And they hammer you on the survey. And the real question is why? Well, because as soon as that customer came on the lot, I crushed their emotions. I crushed their excitement. I artificially made that customer think about payments, down payment, all the logic issues. Then I tried to get them excited, and I'm making them negotiate 2 times in a deal. So if we want to be able to capitalize on the customer's emotions, we have to understand I can't go negative. I can't bring up the things that have negative effect on customers' emotions. It's all about what creates mental ownership, what gets a customer, remember, to think, feel, and act positive about their decision. That's my whole goal. And it's not about payments right now. Is payment important? Is price important? Yeah, but we got to be able to set it aside, get the value higher than the price. What's the old saying? Build value on our feet, talk price on our seat. Acknowledge they got a TrueCar report. Acknowledge all that stuff. If they got any internet report, I don't care. Man, that's great. I'm glad you brought that in. Empower the customer. Let them know you're not afraid of it, but don't allow that to crush your emotion, your salespeople's emotion, or our emotion just because they're an educated customer. That internet did not sell a car. That internet gave them a lot of information. That internet gave them a lot of features, but it did not sell the sizzle. It did not get a customer lathered up. It did not give them a compelling reason why they need to buy a car. That's our job. And like I said before, it starts with understanding before being understood, understanding that customer. Because customers go through what I call your buyer's quadrant. All right, 4 parts before they buy. Whether it's conscious or subconscious, doesn't matter. Customers, the first quadrant they go through, first part is the customer's guarded. When they walk on your lot, they're guarded. This is how it is. Why are they guarded? Okay, they don't want to get a bad deal, bad experience in the past, a lot of reasons, fear of some sort. But if you can do a good job, lower that customer's guard, then they become open-minded. Okay, and once that customer's open-minded, then they become confident. They're confident you're looking out for them, and then that customer trusts you. Okay, and think about trust. Isn't trust what we're really trying to get to when it comes to selling? I mean, I don't care if you're selling real estate, jewelry, RVs, or cars. It's all ultimately about trust, but is trust given or is trust earned? Yeah, isn't trust earned? How do you earn it? By lowering their guard, by getting them to be open-minded and talking about all the things they care about in the car, getting them to be confident, and then that customer trusts you. So how do I pull it off? With the sales quadrant, simple 4 parts, okay? If quadrant 1 of the customer's buying quadrant is they're guarded, quadrant 1 of the sales quadrant is reassure the customer. Reassure the customer we're different, find common ground, do my pre-demo trade walk, and find out what the customer's hot buttons are. Because once I start doing that, once I start finding common ground, once I start finding out their hot buttons, it's not all about wants and needs now. I want to know the hot buttons. They already know their wants and needs on that internet report. My job is to sell hot buttons. So I'm finding out their hot buttons. I'm doing my pre-demo trade walk. I'm reassuring them. Also, this is where you kind of got to tell your story. You know, you got to tell them what separates you from everybody else. I'm a huge believer now in the car business today. You have to create separation. You got to create separation between you and your competitors. You know, we always in the past, if you had 50 dealerships in your town, you had 50 competitors. Not anymore. You got 20,000 competitors. I had Kobe in class. He's from Hilo, Hawaii. Well, he's got people that are buying cars from mainland. They're buying cars from Texas and having them shipped to Hilo. It's a flat world, man, when it comes to the car business now. So what are you doing to give them a compelling reason why they need to buy from you? What are you doing to cause differentiation between you and everybody else? And that's what we do to reassure the customer. We lower their guard. Then we do our high-impact presentation demonstration. Remember, quadrant 2 of the customer, they become open-minded. We lowered their guard. Now they're open-minded. Now I do my high-impact presentation demonstration. That customer is now at least giving you a shot. All right, what do you got? I'll at least listen to you when you show me the vehicle. This is where you create mental ownership. So now they're open-minded. I'm giving you a shot. Now quadrant 3 in the sales quadrant is to transition that customer from the lot to the office. It's now to get them inside. And remember, look, I've already brought them through this. They're confident in you now. They're looking for somebody to validate the decision on that vehicle. Why do they bring their Uncle Bill to help them buy a car? Because they're looking for somebody to validate the decision. That's your job as a salesperson. It's my job as a salesperson is to tell you, make you believe this is the right car. I'm validating your decision. You're confident in me now, so I have the right to do that. I've earned the right over the last 45 minutes to validate your decision. I got to believe, great closers believe from the top of their head to the bottom of their toes that if you do not buy a car from me right now, you're making the biggest mistake of your lives. That's what great closers believe. And that's what I'm going to believe. I'm going to validate this is the right car. Is it always the right car? Well, of course not. But if I don't believe it, the customer's never going to believe it. And then quadrant 4, the sales quadrant, is having a win-win transaction. Okay, win-win transaction. For you traditional stores, could be your negotiation, could be just sticker, just so you know, negotiations are optional. But for you guys that are one price, doesn't matter, man. All this is the same process. You sit them down, you give them your options. If you're a one price store, give them their payment options. You make it logical. You show them the market pricing, and you show them market pricing on their vehicle. And you justify it. This is the logical part of the sale. But here's what you remember. If you walked them through that process, lowered their guard when they showed up, got them to be open-minded, so they created mental ownership in that car. Customers take mental ownership before physical or financial ownership. Then when they came back, I validated their decision. They're confident in me, so I transition them from the lot inside. Then when we sit down, now they trust me. That's how we create a win-win transaction. But remember, understand before being understood. And once you understand how the emotions with us and the customer work, that's when you hit the big time. So really quick on this, couple negative actions that can cost you a car deal, okay? Negative things we do as salespeople that actually cost us deals. And number 1, huge one, we don't have common ground. We don't make friends, okay? We don't make friends. Number 2, no control of the customers. We are unprofessional. We don't do a good presentation demonstration. We talk price. We leave customers alone. That's huge. But what are the good things? Here's what we do to create positive emotion on the lot. Have a spark in our eyes, spring in our step, smile on our face. Number 2, professional appearance. prompt and proper greeting. Then we have to do a good pre-demo trade walk around their car before you do your demonstration drive. Make sure you have a commitment from the customer, but make it seamless from the lot to the office, and then have a professional negotiation. And that's what it comes down to. So to be a relational salesperson, be able to capitalize on this, really it comes down to have sales process efficiency, good at questioning, good at listening, good customer involvement throughout the process, validate the customers, have a transparent transaction, follow through and follow up with everybody, and be trained and prepared, always. How often daily should you train and coach your guys? Every single day. It's not an option. So 8 tips I'm gonna give you that you can do to improve your salespeople, to be able to leverage the emotions of a car deal. Number 1, lead by example. Look, we're managers, we got to control our emotions if we want salespeople to control the emotions. We need to do the right things if we want our salespeople to do the right things. Number 2, use a process that's easy for customers. Okay, I always ask guys a question. Is your sales process designed to make it easy for you to sell cars or for customers to get their new vehicles? And most of our processes are designed for us. Some old car guy 50 years ago created most of our processes. We got to make this process easy for customers. And number 3 is a huge one to me. Simplify and speed up your sales process. Look, quadrant 1 should last 15 minutes max. Quadrant 2, 30 minutes. Your presentation demonstration. When I go in dealerships and do my training, my goal is to have the customer inside to the office, to the negotiation within an hour of them showing up. And if I can get that customer there within an hour, man, then their emotions are high. Problem is, in all of our stores, it takes too long. Some of you guys take an hour just to negotiate with every customer. And we've all heard the ether, right? Customers are under the ether, and the ether starts wearing off. It's like you going into surgery, and surgery's gonna last an hour, and the anesthesiologist says, I kind of got bad news. This ether's only going to last 30 minutes, but surgery's an hour. How'd that make you feel? You'd feel all right for the first 30 minutes. After that, and not so well. It's like the guy that jumped off a 50-story building. What did he say at the 20th floor? So far, so good. But that's exactly what happens. So far, so good till you hit 30, 40, 50 minutes. Some of you guys take 40 minutes to get the first worksheet to them. Speed this process up. Speed it up without skipping steps. That's the most important thing to do, and that's what I really focus on, man, in stores. Also, managers, get involved early and often. Get out of your office. Get on the floor. Do an early flyby to say hi to customers. Keep their emotions up. Customers love that. I got to keep my salespeople's emotions up. They come back from a demo, you better be out there ready to take over that deal, man, because your salespeople get their teeth kicked in 3 or 4 times a day from customers. And the scary thing is they get their teeth kicked in 3 or 4 times a day by customers. Then they finally bring us a deal. What do? We kick their teeth in when they come into us. So, get involved early, get involved often with that customer. Also, coach them before deals, during deals, and after deals. Always be coaching them, giving them tips, helping them get better. But also remember this, the next one, train salespeople before a deal and after a deal, never during a deal. All right? Stop training during a deal. It's too late. It's too late to train during a deal, man. You can't. They're not in the learning mode. They're emotionally and financially attached to that deal. Every one of us have loaded a salesperson's lips. Hey, go say this to the customer. And then you look at them and say, okay, repeat it back. How close are they? Not even, you're like, where'd that come from? That's not what I said. Give me the deal. Let me go talk to them. It's because the salespeople are not in a learning mode. You don't train during a deal. You train before and after. Coach during a deal. And then I want you to do a really good job moving forward of motivating and celebrating victories. Motivating your people and celebrating victories. We need more fun. We have to bring the competition and fun back into the dealership. And I'm going to show you in a second a way you can bring some serious competition and fun back in your dealership. And the last thing of these 8 is you need to have personal and professional development. Look, we all got to have personal and professional development. What are you doing to make yourself better today than you were yesterday? That's got to be your attitude. And if you're always challenging yourself to get better, the customers always, or your salespeople are always going to be challenging themselves to get better. And you're going to keep getting better. And it becomes a culture of growth instead of a culture of complacency in your store. Here's what I want you to do. On those 8 things, I want you to write down one of those 8 things that you're committed to doing without failure. Which one of those is most important? Whether it's speeding up your process, simplifying your process, getting involved early and often, coaching more, training more. Hey, I think motivating, celebrating victories more. In fact, here's the last thing, and we're done, is one thing we do in all the dealerships we go into is we bring this golden bat. Okay, and I'm a huge, huge believer of having fun in the store and bringing excitement. And with this bat, we put this at the sales tower or sales office, and it's a home run bat, we call it, and the guys love it. Okay, so here's how it works. Salespeople get to autograph the bat when they hit a home run. What does that mean? Well, how many of you guys would like to raise your gross? Well, this is a guaranteed way to raise it because every one of you guys have a home run. Some stores we're in, $5,000, front and back end gross is a home run. One of the stores I go into, $10,000 is considered a home run. And look, a home run means maybe you get 4 or 5, maybe 6 a month, maybe a few more if you're really crushing it. Percentage-wise, it's 5 or 10% of your deals. And every time a salesperson hits a home run, whether it's 5,000, 7,500, or 10 grand, on Saturday when you have your sales meetings, the salespeople get to come up. Whoever hit a home run, they get to autograph the bat. They put the deal number on there in front of all the other salespeople. Maybe you give them $100, do a spiff, something like that. But when they get to autograph this bat, how's that make them feel? Pretty fired up in front of their peers? Man, they're king ding dong because they just hit a home run, man. They got to autograph the bat. And think about yourself. If you were a salesperson and your buddy had 5 autographs on this bat and you had 0, what would you be shooting for? That's right. You wouldn't be thinking about, I got a whole $10,000 deal. You'd be thinking, I got to get my signature on this bat. And it'll blow your mind how many guys start working their tail off to get their signature on this bat. Heck, I got one store I go into that the salesperson, Andres, he would actually have the customers sign the bat. He'd take it out. He didn't tell them why, but he'd take it out to them. They'd autograph the bat, and he'd send me a picture of it, and he'd have fun with the customers. But man, you get 25 signatures on this bat for $10,000 deals. That's $250,000. That's $250,000. You guys that are dealers and managers, here's your goal. Put this bat at your desk. Your goal is to get 25 signatures if it's 10 grand. If a home run for you is 7,500, that's all right. Your goal is to fill this bat up. It becomes a $250,000 bat. Once I fill this up, then it's to get a second bat. You are gonna be a $250,000 bat collector and see how many of these bats you can get this year. And man, I promise, it brings the fun and the competition back to your dealership. And once you can bring the fun and competition back to your dealership, man, that's when business hits right. That's when you leverage the emotions of a deal. Anyway, it was great having you guys take time out of your busy day. I know you're all busy, but man, thanks for taking time out of your day. Congratulations. Now go out and make yourself great.